because they have so much talent. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's played right into the Islanders' hands. I mean, if Pittsburgh doesn't win tonight, I think the Islanders win the series. Pittsburgh has to win tonight.
Yeah, I believe that. The big surprise for me was actually the San Jose sweep.
This might be, in the West, San Jose's year. All these last 3 or 4 years that they've come in heavy favorites and then have been disappointments. Everyone has kind of left them alone this spring, and it was a short season, obviously, so there weren't too many, chances for people to talk about how great the Sharks are. Is this their year, or what are they going to do at the trading deadline because they've been a disappointment in the playoffs past? Is Doug Wilson going to change the team? Everybody's kind of left them alone, and they obviously are the first team to get into the next round. They might have the right mix of players. They've finally got the goalie. So, although I was a bit surprised that he was nominated for the Vezina, I'm glad he was. Sometimes, those late night goaltending performances get overlooked, but the Vezina is the one award that's voted on by the GMs, and they all are paying attention and they know what they're voting for. So not that writers or broadcasters were not paying attention, but the GMs don't usually miss, and they really know what they're looking at. So I was, I think this could be the Sharks' year. They're not fighting huge expectations. They're just doing their thing, and maybe they'll get to the Stanley Cup final finally this year.
That would be a nice surprise. Yeah, he's nominated against Lundqvist and Bobrovsky. That's the Vezina Trophy nominees. We have that on our run sheet to talk about. The other Western Conference series that we'll be paying attention to, obviously, is the Chicago Blackhawks and Minnesota Wild. Rooting for Chicago, obviously. Am I right, Sal?
Yes.
Yes. Earlier in the last week, I believe, he was saying how he was watching the Minnesota game and kind of throwing stuff at the TV every time he saw Parise.
Yeah. So are you rooting for Chicago because you're rooting against Minnesota, or are you rooting against Zach?
Can I say combination of both? We're a little bit pissed still about the Minnesota situation. So I believe we had Sherry Ross on last week, and she was calling on the Minnesota Heat, which I think is pretty funny. So
the Minnesota what?
Minnesota Heat.
Oh. Yeah.
So, yeah. The others... Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on to another series, but you were going to say something?
Yeah, go right ahead. We'll go right past Zach. You go ahead. I think the Blackhawks are going to win and finish them off.
Thank God for that. We were going to go over to Boston and Toronto with their overtime spectacular last night. I got to say, the Bruins are just looking red hot right now. I think, unfortunately for Toronto, who finally makes the playoffs, they're going to get handed to Toronto tomorrow night. The best part of that overtime game last night was James Reimer's mom and wife in the stands. I mean, you cannot imagine what it would be like to have to watch that. It just must be torture to be a goalie mom. I mean, to be a hockey mom is torture, but to be a goalie mom I could not deal with it. I mean, to see her like that, covering her eyes, I mean, that's got to be the most difficult thing in the world. That's what makes it such great theater. I mean, the amount of pressure and the agita, the angst is just insane. Yes, that's very true. I did see that, actually, in the highlights this morning.
Oh, my gosh. It was just torture to watch her, and torture for her to watch, and watch her watching her son. I mean, because you just want, them to do well, and you just want them to, it's just, the ultimate torture for hockey parents. You never want your kid to be a goalie just for that.
The other series in the East that we were talking about, obviously, is the Capitals and the Rangers. And I kind of want Washington to win this series for obvious circumstances, being a Devils fan. But this is turning out to be a great series.
Yeah, a great series. It looked like, maybe the Rangers just didn't have it when they were in Washington, and now the series has just turned into one of those home ice momentum series. So if they go back to Washington and the Capitals win, it looks like a 7-game series. If the Rangers break through tonight, I think similar to the Islanders, if they were to break through Pittsburgh, I think if the Rangers break through tonight, they're going to win the series. Or no, they're not tonight, but I mean, if the Rangers break through against Washington, I think they're going to win the series.
Yeah, it's tomorrow night. Tonight, though, is the Ottawa and Montreal that we have actually audio of the big brawl that broke out the other night that we're going to play later on. And, Sal, you were watching that live, so
yes.
What were you going to say about? We were talking about that, so go ahead.
It was, high tension. That's all I can really say is just, just watching this game, it was, just high tension. I mean, you could definitely feel it, and just watching all the fights that were breaking out, and, I'm going to have to say that the Tooth Fairy must be very happy because there's been a lot of missing teeth this season.
Did you see the stat that the number one star of the last 3 straight games in that series has all lost, is that each of them lost a tooth, I guess, including the goalies?
I don't know.
So it's like it's like a streak that has to be in the game. No, it's now 3 straight games the number one star has lost a tooth.
That's funny.
But we saw Ottawa. I saw Ottawa live and Montreal live. It's funny, like each of them 3 times. And so that's like a fourth of the season. Like there were so few games. I feel like I just saw so many of those, so many of those guys in those teams ice level. Ottawa was so impressive. I mean, and that the times, obviously you didn't see him with Erik Karlsson because he didn't come back until now. And I think he got hurt the game before. I know he did. He got hurt the game before the Devils played them in New Jersey because Paul McLean, the coach, was such a jerk about it. He didn't want to answer any questions about it. And he was condescending about it, which is why I said he was a jerk about it. But you know what? That was his way of dealing with it, and it worked for his team. He was ornery about anyone even asking how they're going to play or how they're going to manage without him. And it certainly worked for his team that they got ornery about it because that's how they handled it. But even without him, and they were without Jason Spezza, and they might have even had another injury by then. Oh my gosh, they were unbelievably impressive. And I could not figure out how Montreal won all the games they did. They were, they didn't blow me away when I saw them play ice level. I just couldn't figure out how they kept winning games. I would see out-of-town scores, and I was like, God, they won again, or they scored 4 goals again, and Carey Price wasn't great when I saw him. I don't know. And then he'd be, I saw he went 3 games without giving up a goal. I was like, how did that happen? I don't know. And so it seems to be in the playoffs now, they're reverting back to the form of the live games that I saw. Carey Price hasn't been great. Montreal's gotten, a couple of injuries, and that seems like it's all it's taken for them to not be able to play with Ottawa. I don't know, but that's the way I saw it during the regular season. I was just surprised that Ottawa slipped late and they almost didn't make the playoffs, and that Montreal, almost won the division or whatever. They were not as impressive to me.
All right. The last series here, I almost forgot about this one, is the Anaheim-Detroit series that Anaheim just took the lead last night. And Detroit actually surprisingly looking a lot better than I expected against the Ducks.
Me too. I totally agree. They almost didn't make the playoffs. I think we even said a couple of times, I was hearing people say, the Detroit's streak of 21 straight seasons making the playoffs is going to end. They had the longest streak, and then all of a sudden they were in again. I think Mike Babcock is an amazing coach. I think he is, I hate to say he's underrated. I don't know if people take him for granted because he's been there a long time and his team always wins. He's got some high-end players, obviously. I just think he's an amazing coach. I think he's an amazing game day coach. In-game coach, adjustment coach. I love his style. I love his attitude. So that comes into preparation, too, not just, once they drop the puck, but on practice days and in between days and everything else. I love him as a coach. He could coach my team anytime. And they've hung in there with the Ducks. So I don't think they'll win the series. I think Anaheim wins the series. Anaheim has so much talent. And I think Bruce Boudreau is an excellent coach, too. I like Anaheim in the series, but definitely Detroit has shown up and definitely made it a series.
Absolutely. And now, since we've covered everyone, who do you think will make it to the end and win it all?
Who do I think is going to... okay, let's see. I'm going to say... Geez. I like the Sharks to get to the Stanley Cup final.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I like in the East. Who do I like in the East? Wow. I'm going to say Rangers.
Ooh, Rangers
wow.
And the Sharks.
Nice.
I'm going to say Rangers Sharks. What do you think of that?
That's an intriguing matchup, actually.
Yes, that it would be.
Wow. Here's a question that got brought up last week that I didn't even think about it until Sherry said it. Do you think that the Cup this year, because of this shortened season, it will be considered a fluke, just like the 95 Devils at the time were considered?
Not at all.
Okay.
I've already forgotten that it was, once now that we're in the playoffs, I've already forgotten that it wasn't that long of a season.
Okay. That's something that came up last week.
I really don't, I don't think so. And, I wasn't, covering hockey in 95. And so I don't remember, but certainly now, especially being in the Devils culture the last couple of years, I don't think anybody thinks about the 95, that cup as being,
now
a bit of a fluke. Sherry would know better, and obviously others would know better if during that time they felt it.
Yeah. 95 was my second season, so I came in and joined the team. I joined the fandom around 94, so that was my second season.
Yeah.
So.
And you remember it being that way, like having
it felt like it at the time, because it just everyone's like, well, it was a shortened season. And then they won the cup in 2000, and everyone kind of just forgot about it,
Yeah. I don't know if it's because the fight to get into the playoffs was so intense down the stretch, and so many teams teams had to play really well and win themselves into the playoffs. There was no backing in. There was no big separation between the top teams and the bottom teams. And the playoffs have been so good and evenly matched. I think people have kind of forgotten that it was a shortened season, and I don't know. I don't think there'll be any remembrances of that. I think it's a great race already.
All right, awesome. Well, let's get back to the Devils. This has been a rough year, obviously. What do you think was the downfall this season? Was it the losing streaks? Was it Kobe's injury? Combination of both, or something else?
Well, here the thing I think is, when we were joking, making light of multiplying 6 games as a fourth of the season. The fractions of the season were such that Steve Cangelosi had this brilliant line. We came on the air for the last home. Our last broadcast was the last home game of the year, and I threw it upstairs, and Steve said, "Welcome to Game 41." This would be half the season. This would be the halfway mark.
It's true.
And instead it was, Game 41. So I guess it wasn't our last broadcast, but I forget the circumstances. Maybe it was, I forget what the circumstances were, but I just remember saying Game 41. It must have been 2 weeks left or something.
Yeah.
And it just sort of hits you like, oh my gosh, this would really only, have been half the body of work. So when Marty Brodeur misses 14 games, that's like he missed 28. You have to almost double it. And when Kobe missed however many he missed, 12, that's almost like 24. So the fractions, if you double them, everything that happened to them was almost like twice as worse, twice as bad. They went 13 games where Hedberg had to start. He struggled. They had struggled scoring goals. You can't overcome a 26-game stretch in a regular season, which is how we normally think of it, where you're scoring 1 or 2 goals, and Hedberg was really struggling. And that's really what it was. It was that 13-game stretch where he started every game. I don't know if they ever really seriously considered starting Kincaid. There was the time where the 2 young goalies, remember, came in, and as Hedberg got pulled, they both played, but it was because Hedberg had given up 3 or 4 and they pulled the goalie. So neither of them ever started. Hedberg started all in a row, and it was, you just can't overcome it. So to me, that was the biggest thing. When you double up those stretches they had, which is how we considered in a normal season, they couldn't overcome it in the end.
All right. Well, they ended up with the number 9 pick in the draft, which is always a good thing, though. What do you think their biggest need for this summer is going to be? It could be the draft or in free agency. What do you think?
Well, I don't see them jumping into the free agent pool July. It's funny. Everyone always says July 1st. I think it's actually July 3rd this year or something funny.
I looked it up. I don't even know when it is.
Yeah, I think it's July 3rd. It's free agency got moved. The actual date is now going to be July 3rd because the draft is until June 30th because the Cup may not end until the 28th.
Yeah.
And there's no Vegas this year. So, which I'm trying to figure out how they're going to announce this at the Stanley Cup final. Are they going to fly in the winter? Because what a shame! The one year, you win the Vezina or the Hart, you don't get your big, hold up the trophy moment.
It's kind of a shame.
Such a bummer. So I don't know. No, there's a big free agent that they're going to try to lure in July 3rd. I think they may use a buyout if they want to get bring in some new players, simply for the fact that I don't know if it's so much about the money, it's more the roster spot. Like if they want John Merrill to play, if they want Stefan Matteau to have a spot, if they want to give this kid Reed Boucher, who broke Steven Stamkos' record with the Sarnia Sting, he scored 62 goals or however many goals he scored. And they need to score goals. This kid Boucher looked like he belonged in Albany. He was scoring right away.